I don't like Breath of the Wild very much. When it released, I played it, did a couple shrines and got bored pretty quickly, so I stopped playing. I'm a huge fan of traditional Zelda because of the amazing puzzles, the cool atmosphere and its dungeons, and its spectacular yet sometimes goofy boss fights, and Breath of the Wild just provided none of that for me. It was just boring. I got caught up in the insanely cool idea of the game, that you can go wherever, whenever you like, but soon realized that when I eventually reached the destination I set myself, that there wasn't a whole lot to do there, except maybe some more boring shrines. So when Tears of the Kingdom got announced and it looked very similar to Breath of the Wild, I was frightened that it might continue with the same design philosophies. But luckily it didn't. Tears of the Kingdom has dungeons, some of my favorite actually, with cool puzzles and good bosses, one of which easily goes into my top 3 Zelda bosses, which is saying a lot, because I think that Zelda had some of the coolest bosses ever in video game history. The dungeons are also atmospheric as hell, but I can't really talk about that here without getting into spoiler territory, so I'll just say this: the dungeons look cool, have good music and fit their location. All things that I loved about games like Twilight Princess. These older games, however, are not without their flaws, and I'll talk about the, in my opinion, biggest one now. I already went on long enough about why I loved the dungeons so much, but the problem with traditional Zelda, at least to me, was always that it wasn't only dungeons, and the stuff that wasn't part of a dungeon always kinda sucked. Usually it consisted of collecting resources, talking to NPCs and fighting boring default mobs, alone, with nothing all that interesting happening. Sometimes there was a funny cutscene or a cool character, but all the main stuff still happened in the dungeons, and so I usually just used guides to make my way through these sections, as quickly as I possibly could to get back to the fun part. Breath of the Wild, funnily enough, had the opposite problem to me. The world was fun to explore, dynamic, with lots of things to do. Yes, you still talked to NPCs and gathered resources, but not only were these systems way more in-depth than in past games, with stuff like cooking and whatnot, it was also optional, at least for the most part. And Tears of the Kingdom manages to have both somehow. Engaging dungeons with fun bosses and an awesome world that is now even more fun to play with thanks to all the vehicles added. So if you love traditional Zelda and bounce off Breath of the Wild, I recommend Tears of the Kingdom. Especially to you. You might like it.